The academic and grant/DAA to register now. The Age Academy also features Research Innovation Academy, a dynamic hub at the forefront of groundbreaking research. It's a 6-week certification course with 13 robust modules as shown on our screen. Key takeaways are mastery in crafting winning grant proposals, accredited certification, access to a comprehensive 1,303-page resource document outlining global grant opportunities valued at €534,990. Receive several samples of awarded research and NGO grant proposals. At the Research Innovation Academy, we empower researchers to tap into their creative wellspring and turn innovative concepts into tangible outcomes. Register now at www.academicenclave.org/RIA. The Age Academy also presents the Grant Writing Academy, a comprehensive 3-week grant writing certification course that is meticulously designed to empower researchers, academics, non-profit organizations, project consultants, small business owners, project managers, and social entrepreneurs with the skills to craft compelling grant proposals. Key takeaways are mastery in crafting winning grant proposals, accredited certification, access to a comprehensive 1,303-page research document outlining global grant opportunities valued at €534,990. Also receive several samples of awarded research and NGO grant proposals. Register now at www.academicenclave.org/GWA. Now. The academic and grant.org/DAA to register now. The Age Academy also features Research Innovation Academy, a dynamic hub at the forefront of groundbreaking research. It's a 6-week certification course with 13 robust modules as shown on our screen. Key takeaways are mastery in crafting winning grant proposals, accredited certification, access to a comprehensive 1,303-page resource document outlining global grant opportunities valued at €534,990. Receive several samples of awarded research and NGO grant proposals. At the Research Innovation Academy, we empower researchers to tap into their creative wellspring and turn innovative concepts into tangible outcomes. Register now at www.academicenclave.org/RIA. The Age Academy also presents the Grant Writing Academy, a comprehensive 3-week grant writing certification course that is meticulously designed to empower researchers, academics, non-profit organizations, project consultants, small business owners, project managers, and social entrepreneurs with the skills to craft compelling grant proposals. Key takeaways are mastery in crafting winning grant proposals, accredited certification, access to a comprehensive 1,303-page research document outlining global grant opportunities valued at €534,990. Also receive several samples of awarded research and NGO grant proposals. Register now at www.academicenclave.org/GWA. Age also
All right. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the esteemed scholars in the house, depending on where you're joining today's lecture from. You're especially welcome to today's keynote lecture with Professor Dr. Ezekiel Musa. It's going to be an exciting time of lecture with him. You're all especially welcome. I sincerely want to plead with you to kindly be patient. We'll be commencing the call soon by commencing the class soon by introducing a keynote speaker for the day. Just before we do that, if you're connected, if you're on the call and you're up and watching, kindly introduce yourself. The chat box is open. Let's get to know you, your name and your affiliation in the chat box. Let's get to know you. You're specially welcome to today's keynote lecture. And just before our facilitator comes up, there's also a form for each and every participant. It is necessary for you to fill the form. Our facilitator for today wants to carry out something very, very important, a little poll. It won't take a time, it won't take your time, just a few minutes time you would have concluded filling the form. So the link to the form will be dropped in the chat box. As soon as you join the call, kindly form. Fill in the form. It's going to be anonymous. Your name will not be known. It's just a little question that will help you in publishing your thesis. You're especially welcome. And don't forget, as you join the call, let's get to know you, your name, and your affiliation. Our keynote speaker is already on the call, and very soon we'll be introducing him, so we'll not be taking much of your time. But just to allow more persons join the call, we'll be using this time to to get to know you. So kindly introduce yourself and also fill the form while we wait for our facilitator to come up. Hello, esteemed scholars. You're especially welcome to today's keynote lecture with Professor Dr. Ezekiel Musa, Dr. Carol Anyagwa from Department of English, University of Lagos. You're especially welcome to today's keynote lecture. Dr. Ayuba Yakubu Wabande, you're especially welcome from College for Legal Studies, ULA, Department of Criminology and Security Studies. You're especially welcome. And then we have Iria Kelly from University of Ibadan. You're especially welcome. And then we have Dr. Joy Adefemi from Ladoke Akintola University of Technology, Ogbomosho, Oyo State. You're highly welcome. Then we have Dr. Hamza Alaji from Federal University of Kashiri, Gombe State. You're especially welcome. If you're on the call and have not introduced yourself, kindly do that in the chat box. The link to the poll has been dropped. Please just use few minutes to just complete it. Your facilitator wants to know, wants to take a little survey that will help in delivering today's lecture. So just take few minutes to fill the form. And as you come, introduce yourself. Let's get to know you, and then fill the form. And in a short while, we'll be introducing our facilitator. You're especially welcome to today's keynote lecture. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Olufayokemi Rashidat Oyensomi from Federal University of Lokoja. You're especially welcome to today's keynote lecture. And then Mr. Jik Albert Way from Fulafia, a student. You're especially welcome to today's keynote lecture. Welcome, welcome. Keep introducing yourself, and don't forget to just fill the form. Yes, it's just a little survey. The link has been sent and is still being sent. Kindly take few minutes to fill the form. And then Dr. John Ezekiel Umar Suleiman College of Education, Gashua, you're especially welcome to today's keynote lecture. We have Dr. Stephen Bamidele from National Open University of Nigeria. You're especially welcome. Thank you for joining today's keynote lecture. We have Dr. John Ochai from Federal Medical Center, Gashua. You're especially welcome also, Dr. John. Welcome to today's keynote lecture. If you're just joining us, kindly take few minutes to fill the form. It's a little survey before we commence the class for today. The facilitator wants to get to know your thoughts. It's just a little survey. In a few minutes time, you'll be done filling it. So kindly fill the form. I'll be sending the link again. Fill the form, just take the little survey. Thank you so much for coming. And then we have Dr. Monisayo Komolafe from Adeleke University, Ede, Osun State. You're highly welcome to today's keynote lecture. And then welcome Dr. Suliat Abdullahi from Fountain University, Oshobo. You're especially welcome, ma'am. Don't forget to fill the form as you're coming in. Fill the form. It's just take a little survey. In few minutes time, you'll be done. It's not something much. Our facilitator is already on the call, and shortly we'll be bringing him up. We just want to allow more time for more persons to join in the call and to have more responses from the little survey we're conducting. All right. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the esteemed scholars in the house, depending on where you're joining today's lecture from. Welcome to the Academic and Grant Writing Enclave. And today's edition of our keynote lecture, we're hosting Professor Dr. Ezekiel Musa to give us a lecture on From Thesis to Journal, turning your medical research into a published masterpiece. It's a pleasure and delight to be hosting him for today's keynote lecture, and a special welcome and thank you to all the esteemed academics who have joined the lecture today. I've actually been welcoming some persons who introduced themselves in the chat box. It's not too late. Let's get to know you, your name and your affiliation. And Dr. J.N. Ande Federal Medical Center Jalingo, you're specially welcome to today's keynote lecture. And then we have Lawi Magaji, a researcher with Nigerian Stored Product Research Institute. You're specially welcome. Yes, welcome everyone. And Oyenike Monsurat from Osun State University, Osogbo. You're highly welcome to today's keynote lecture. And shortly, I'll be bringing up our facilitator to commence today's lecture. And just before that, we have a little survey that is coordinated by our facilitator for today. So if you have not filled the form, if you have not carried out the survey, please rush and do that before we bring him up for the lecture. The link to the form has been sent. Just few minutes, you'll be done filling the form. And we have Gabriel Emmanuel from Federal Polytechnic Ilaro. You're highly welcome, sir. And we have Engineer BME Fika from Ogun State Institute of Technology. You're specially welcome. Please fill in the form. Take few minutes to complete the survey if you have not. Welcome, 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 everyone. All right, just before I bring up our facilitator, it's my pleasure to present his citation. We have Dr. Ezekiel Musa today on today's keynote lecture. All right. We are honored to welcome Dr. Ezekiel Musa, a notable endocrinologist, clinician scientist, and academic whose contributions have impacted maternal health, diabetes, and endocrinology. Dr. Musa holds an MBBS FWACP, that is Fellowship of the West African College of Physicians, and a PhD in medicine from the prestigious University of Cape Town, South Africa. His groundbreaking research on gestational diabetes mellitus and maternal obesity has led to novel insights that have the potential to transform global clinical practices in maternal and fetal health. With a breadth of international recognition, Dr. Musa has presented his research at leading international conferences, including the International Federation of Placenta Associations meeting, the International Congress of Endocrinology, and also presented at the Diabetes in Pregnancy Symposium, Leicester Diabetes Center, University of Leicester, United Kingdom. His work has been published in high-impact journals such as the Journal of Physiology, Placenta, PLOS Digital Health, etc., earning widespread acclaim and academic influence. Dr. Musa has served as a reviewer for high-impact international journals. Professionally, Dr. Musa serves as a consultant with NHS in the United Kingdom. Dr. Musa is an adjunct associate professor at the Anchor University Center for Global Health, Nigeria. His expertise extends beyond academia, where he has served the International Diabetes Federation, IDF, Diabetes Atlas 11th Edition Scientific Committee, and specifically as a member of the Hyperglycemia in Pregnancy Special Interest Group, that is SIG. Dr. Musa's exceptional contributions have been recognized through prestigious awards, including the Journal of Physiology's Early Investigator Prize 2023, the YW, that is Charlie Look New Investigator Award, and the International Society of Endocrinology Travel Fellowship Award. It is a delight and with great honor and a warm welcome. Kindly join me to welcome our facilitator and the keynote speaker for today, who will be taking us on the subject from thesis to journal, turning your medical research into a published masterpiece. I know you might not be able to send up emojis, but use the chat box to and type in welcome, 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 sir. Welcome to Dr. Ezekiel Musa. Join me in typing welcome, welcome, welcome. So join me everyone as I welcome Dr. Ezekiel Musa, our keynote speaker for today. You're welcome, sir. The mic is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir. It's up, sir.
Okay. Good day, everyone. My name is Dr. Musa. This particular moment, I will be taking you through this special lecture titled From Thesis to Journal. We shall be looking at how to turn your medical research into a published masterpiece. This is the following synopsis we shall be going through, looking at the introduction, types of thesis and dissertation, steps in crafting manuscripts from a thesis, tips and tricks for success, as well as interactive session. So what is research? Research is a process of systematic inquiry that entails one, collection of data, documentation of critical information, analysis and interpretation of data, in accordance with suitable methodologies set by specific professional fields and academic discipline. Again, research includes leading, findings or new facts that will help in verifying available knowledge. Now, what is medical research? Medical research refers to the process of using scientific methods to produce knowledge about human diseases, the prevention and treatment of illness, as well as the promotion of health. Now, how do we classify medical research? Principally, there are two types of medical research. Number one is primary research, which include clinical research, basic medical research, as well as epidemiological research. While secondary research includes systematic reviews and meta-analysis, scoping reviews, and review articles. Now, very important question. Why publish your research? Why is it expedient for you to publish your research? Why is it significant for you to publish your research? These are some of the possible answers to this important question. One, to establish credibility in your field. When you publish your work, it places you in a position of authority, in a position of leadership in your chosen field. Publishing your research allows you the opportunity to share knowledge with global research community. It helps you to advance your academic career as well as funding opportunities. For instance, if you want to progress, if you are in academia from a junior, academic to a full professor or to a senior research fellow in the university, you have to demonstrate clear track record in publishing academic piece. And of course, if you want an agency to fund your research work, there must be evidence of good and quality research that has been published before funders will be interested in supporting you. So it's very essential in this instance that you publish your research work. Again, publishing your research helps to impact healthcare practices and policy in Africa and all over the world, because we know that advancement in medicine is driven by evidence-based approaches. Therefore, when you publish your work, you contribute, the global space in shaping, healthcare practices across Africa and across the world. Publishing your research helps to build your research profile for collaborations. So for instance, if you have shown, visibility through your published work, that has the potential of attracting, collaborators from distinguished, universities and academic institutions to collaborating with you in a given field of study. Now, briefly, before we proceed, what are the types of thesis and dissertation that we've got? Number one, we've got the undergraduate thesis. And I hope, which I suppose that most of us that are on this call today have got, or have written an undergraduate mini thesis at some point in time. Typically, it is usually introductory research and often limited in scope. We've got the master's dissertation, which is a little more advanced, usually original in terms of contribution to available knowledge. And then at the peak of it is the PhD thesis, usually comprehensive and provides novel contribution to the field. What do we mean by this novel contribution to the field? We mean a PhD thesis is supposed to generate new and original contribution to available knowledge. So if you are undertaking a PhD research and there's no evidence that there's some sort of novelty or new knowledge to the field, then perhaps you might have challenges with the committee of examiners for your thesis. Now, we need to know that a thesis is more exhaustive, is usually detailed and long. However, in the other hand, a journal publication is usually concise, focused, and standardized. So therefore, when you want to publish your paper from your thesis, you need to know that your journal is not directly proportional to a thesis. You don't have to translocate all the components you have on your thesis to your journal article. Otherwise, you might not stand the chance of getting your work published. It must be concise, focused, and standardized. Now, what are the important steps in crafting manuscripts from a thesis? I have highlighted 7 of them here. Number 1, you need to identify the core research question. Usually when younger academics called me and they asked me, Dr. Musa, I want to do this research work. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I'm looking for help. Is there a topic you think I should work on? The first question I always ask them, what is the research question? What is the research question? And most of the times, many of those do not usually have a research question. And everything in science starts with a question. What do you want to interrogate? Which question do you want to answer? For instance, as a clinician sitting in that clinic and patients are coming to you day by day, and you realize that a certain age group are coming with a certain disease, then it will arise in your mind that, look, why are these people or people of this age group presenting with this specific clinical problem? That will now be a question. Then if you have that particular question, then you want to answer it. And that is how research evolves. Then the next important step is to now have a methodology. How would you answer this question that you have asked previously? You need to have a structured, highly reproducible methodology in answering your question. And in doing this, in this instance, trying to publish a manuscript from your thesis, you need to avoid unnecessary detail. You don't have to transform, your thesis directly to a publication. In that way, it will be too bogus and will not give clarity and understanding to the general public. So your methodology should avoid unnecessary details. Fourthly, you need to highlight key findings from your thesis. So in publishing a paper, you don't have to put in all the tables from your thesis, all the figures from your thesis. Otherwise, again, your work is not likely to be accepted by any journal. You must be able to highlight important key findings that you want to showcase in your manuscript. The fourth step is aligning your manuscript writing with journal scope and guidelines. A lot of times people just write, and they submit to a journal without looking at the scope of the journal, without looking at the clear guidelines of the journal. That way, by the time they send in the application or they submit their publication rather, they stand the chance of having their paper being rejected. So key to successful publication or successful publishing of your work, you need to understand the scope of the journal you intend to submit your work to, as well as the guidelines. The fifth step is you need to write a clear, highly structured sections, including introduction, methods, results, and discussion. You must use clear language. You must use accurate language. You must also avoid jargons and use of inappropriate statements in your writings. And then the next step is revise your manuscript for clarity and for brevity rather, and impact. A lot of times I have reviewed, manuscripts submitted to high impact journals, and you see that lack of clarity, and sometimes you see that lack of brevity, and sometimes you wonder what is the impact of this work. And of course, most of the times those manuscripts are usually being rejected. So you need to show that scientific rigor in writing a manuscript from your thesis. You might not need to have innovative findings. You don't need to have those, novel findings. But what is critical is that you are able to transform your thesis to a publication using concise, and clear scientific evidence of your research work. Very important. And finally, you need to seek peer review, support before submission. You don't just write your publication and submit to a journal. Sometimes you can share with colleagues. If you have got co-authors, share your work with them. Let them go through your work, review your work, produce or provide critical comments, highlight important areas to improve your piece before submitting to any journal. That way, you stand a chance in getting your work being accepted. Now, what are the preliminary steps to writing manuscripts and papers. The first one is research appraisal. You need to ask yourself, have I done something new and interesting? Have you checked the latest results in the field? Because you could be so excited with your findings, not knowing that out there are several publications in that particular subject. So if you send it to a journal, although it appears new to you, but to the journal, there's nothing exciting because they have got numerous papers that have published similar work. So checking and studying widely to know what is ongoing or what is happening in your field at that particular point in time is very significant. Have the findings been verified by appropriate analysis? A lot of times people have done a great research work, but in analyzing that work, there's nothing unique to showcase. So appropriate analysis is very important in publishing your thesis. Sometimes, even after graduating from your PhD or from your master's program, sometimes your work might require reanalysis for you to be able to answer a specific question that you want to showcase in your publication. It does not mean that the analysis you did in your PhD work or in your master's research, you would just, copy everything and drop on your paper. It might not work. It might not be suitable for a certain journal to accept your work. So verification of your appropriate analysis is very, very important. You need to also appraise the methods, the measurements, tools that you have used, and to ask whether these methods, these measurement tools are valid or reliable. Because sometimes you could have used a particular method that is outdated, or you could have used a certain measurement tool in carrying out your research or in answering your research question that is outdated. And when you want to publish that particular work, the journals will tell you, hey, look, based on available evidence, what you are trying to showcase is actually outdated and does not stand a chance in adding value to global knowledge in the field. So we need to check, we need to always check that the methods we use during our PhD research work or master's research work, whether those methods and measurement tools are what valid or reliable. And again, we need to know whether our findings tell a nice story or whether the story is complete or incomplete. A lot of the papers that I've reviewed in medicine or clinical medicine or biomedical sciences, you could see some authors, perhaps have got, good research questions. And perhaps the methods they have used, valid and fantastic. In fact, the tools they have used in carrying out their research, top notch. But again, when it comes to presenting their findings, you see that story is not being told in a very nice way, in a very scientific way, in a very sound academic manner. And when an editor picks up the manuscript, they throw it out because there's no academic rigor. That is why we need to know how to tell the story. But just to check with you and just to let you know that telling a nice story in an academic masterpiece for publication is an art. It's not something you wake up and you just know it. is something you develop over and over by writing and writing and sharing with mentors, with senior academics to comment, to criticize, and to make suggestions. That way, your academic writing skills are pruned. They are, further, synthesized in such a manner that when you begin to write in the future, this nice story can be seen very clearly. So let not your mind be troubled. Don't be agitated by asking or by saying, oh, how will I be able to tell this nice story? It's something you develop over time. And thanks to Age for organizing this lecture. Perhaps at the end of this lecture, you would learn one or two, skills that will help you in your academic writing, particularly when it comes to publication. Then the second step in writing a paper from your thesis is publication goals. You want to ask, what type of manuscript is this? Who is the audience for this manuscript? Which journal? For instance, you have, conducted a study on the prevalence of obesity among university students in Nigeria. Now, this is a prevalence study. And if you want to choose a journal, and then you want to go into, let's say, you see Nature Genetics or Nature, epidemiology or Nature anything, and you think, oh, because it is Nature, oh, I want to put my research work here. Or let's say you see Lancet Cardiovascular, and you say, wow, I want to put this paper here. Yes, you need to look at all this and be sure whether that particular piece of work is in alignment with the scope of the journal and not just the name of the journal. So again, this will come by experience and by publishing. So we need to check, because if you, for instance, have conducted this particular study, this prevalence study on, obesity among university students, perhaps, yes, maybe an epidemiological journal might accept it. Any journal, obesity journal, for instance, could accept it. A journal that is, has got some cardiovascular components might accept it, but of course not genetic journal, because there's no significant linkage. So we need to take note of that. Then number 3 is the audience. Who is the publication intended, to educate or to provide, your research masterpiece? Are they specialists? Are they scientists? Is it in, providing clear, strategy in writing your manuscript? And of course, you need to check, is it an international journal you want to submit your work to, or is it a local one? And then finally, you need to talk about authorship. Authorship is very, very important. As a matter of fact, before you submit any publication, you have to establish clear authorship before submitting, because it could have some academic ethical considerations at the end. Now, how do you select your target journal? Important considerations include aims and scope. Check journal websites and recent articles. Always do that. It will help. Number 2, types of articles. Are you trying to submit an original paper or original manuscript or original research, or is it a review article from your thesis? So you need to check. Because if you want to submit a review article from the literature review you did in your PhD thesis, then you cannot submit it to a journal that deals with only original research. Otherwise, if you do that, you could have wasted your time, because right away, the manuscript will be rejected. Then we need to think about the impact factor of the journal. Again, this is very important, although we know today there are so many other considerations in publishing your research work, particularly from your thesis. It's not all about impact factor. There are other things you need to look at. You need to look at the clinical importance of a given journal. You need to look at the visibility of a given journal. You need to look at the citations of a given journal. So many things are very important. Impact factor is good, but it is not all about impact factor. And that is why today some journals are moving away, from, showcasing impact factor, but rather using other indices of excellence. So we need to check all those to see whether our papers are suitable to those specific journals. For instance, you have conducted a work that is just a small survey. I wouldn't be expecting you to be aiming at Lancet or aiming at Nature or aiming at New England Journal of Medicine, because the chances that it will not be suitable is high. But if you have conducted good science of medicine, with high academic rigor, multidisciplinary, multi-center or multinational study, or you've conducted a robust randomized controlled trial that has the capacity to transform clinical practice, clinical investigation, and clinical preventive measures, then you stand a chance of showcasing your work in high impact journals like Lancet as well as New England Journal of Medicine. Of course, I've talked about citation scores. These are also important considerations. And then the article processing fees. A lot of times, particularly researchers from low and middle income countries, where funding for research, funding for publication sometimes could be suboptimal. It's very important that we always check with a given journal whether we need to pay a certain amount for publishing our work, or whether we can publish our work without any form of charges. And I'd like you to know that there are credible journals, high impact journals, good journals that can actually, publish your work without you paying any dime. So we can always check before we submit our work. And if you think your work has got no funding for publishing your work, you can go for those, journals which are good but will not charge you a fee, particularly if your work has got credibility, has got, robust academic rigor. And then we need to look at the readership of a given journal. How many people, read manuscript from a given journal? How many people download, papers from a given journal? So readership is very critical. And of course, time from submission to publication is also very important. For instance, for those of us that are, junior academics aspiring to become independent researchers and becoming academic mentors, supervisors, and we want to grow in our fields, this particular point is very important, because if a particular journal takes, let's say, from time that you submitted to the time of publication, assuming it takes maybe roughly 12 months to 18 months, then I'm afraid that would delay your promotion. It would delay your chances of getting your work published as soon as possible. Of course, not undermining, the science or the rigor in your work. So we need to, balance between this duration of the time frame from submission to publication, as well as our ability to publish as quickly as possible so that we can grow academically. And then, of course, you need to look at the acceptance rate. The higher the acceptance rate, the more likely your publication or your paper is likely to be accepted. But the lower the acceptance rate, then the more likely that your paper is likely to be rejected. So you need to take this into cognizance. Don't just, submit your work to a journal. You need to look at the acceptance rate and to see if this is likely, if your manuscript is likely to be accepted. And of course, you need to check whether the journal you want to publish your thesis work or your research work is indexed in a credible database. Is it indexed in Medline, in PubMed, in CINAHL, in Scopus, in Google Scholar, or Web of Science? You need to check all this, because if you publish your work in a journal that is not indexed in any, valuable or any significant, scientific database, widely known database, then you stand a chance of losing the value for your publication. A lot of times you will see academics have, asked a good research question, they've used appropriate methodology, and, they have, written their research paper, masterpiece, in a very logical manner, but yet in choosing a journal, because they have not taken time to observe all these considerations, they find themselves publishing in a predator journal, in a journal that has no visibility internationally, or in a journal that has no academic integrity. At the end of the day, good science is buried in a wrong journal. So we need to always check, the journal indexing. Now, we will now proceed to how to write an impactful manuscript from our thesis. And what are the practical steps? We shall be seeing them in a moment. Number one, we need to look at the title of the manuscript. What components should a good manuscript possess? What should determine a quality and attractive manuscript? One, we need to know that a title of a manuscript should be what? Simple, specific, concise, but not complicated. I like to advise, it's not all the time that we transform the title of our thesis to a title of a journal paper, because we want to make sure that in our journal paper, the title is quite, attractive and simple to understand by the audience. And it must be clear as well. We don't have to use semantics while drafting the title of our papers. Number two, the title should have fewer words as much as possible, but should be adequate to describe the content of the manuscript. The title should be captivating to attract readers. I tell you, it is the title of your manuscript and your abstract that people will see first before reading the contents of your manuscript. I remember recently, publishing one of my papers from, a study I did, many years ago. And the way I crafted that particular title was so captivating that when I submitted it, the journal was very excited, in publishing the work. And so we need to learn all this art. And today, at the end of this study, I would expect that participants should be able to share potential topics or titles of masterpieces of the work they did or they have done in their master's or PhD, for us to see how we can assist in pruning some of those titles. Perhaps it will help at the end of the lecture. Then a title should be, should not be too long in such a way that it will distract potential readers. And of course, that a title should avoid redundancies. A story of, that is redundant. We don't have to say a story of, just tell us what it is. Don't tell us a study of hypogonadism among male patients with type 2 diabetes. No, tell us hypogonadism in male patients with type 2 diabetes will be preferable in this instance. Or observations or northwestern Nigeria. You don't have to mention all this. It's redundant to say in northwestern Nigeria. Let's say you want to say prevalence of diabetes mellitus, among secondary school students in northwestern Nigeria. Northwestern Nigeria in this instance is a bit redundant. So we need to, understand some of this craft of academic writing. Then authors. An author should meet all of the following conditions. If you want to publish your thesis in a journal, you need to know that co-authors, anybody you are listing or you will be listing as an author, must have contributed substantially to the study proposal or research itself, the design, data collection, or analysis and data interpretation before you list them. An author should critically prepare or revise important manuscript contents through intellectual ability before you list them. And finally, they must provide, final agreement on the revised article for publication. This way, authors will be qualified to be listed. And do not forget to, also include the affiliations of co-authors or authors in a given publication. Now let's go to abstract, which is also a very important segment of writing a publication from your thesis. Again, the abstract of your paper must be more concise compared to the abstract of your PhD thesis or your master's dissertation. That should be noted. Number one, the abstract should be precise. It should stand alone, meaning without reading through your paper, just going through the abstract alone, I should be able to tell a story about your research work. A good abstract should be brief and specific, no storytelling. It must minimize abbreviations, and then there should be no references being cited. An abstract must show quality and also show strong influence that will attract editors' decision in the positive fashion. Your abstract should sell your manuscript. By the time I see your abstract, I should be, motivated in reading your manuscript. Recently, I reviewed a very significant, highly clinically impactful paper. But the abstract was in chaos. There was no academic rigor. There was no, concise scientific, credibility. But overall, it was a good work they did. But they were not able to put it in a very scientifically sound manner for any reviewer to be attracted in reading their work. Of course, reading through the work as a reviewer, at the end of the day, the paper did not demonstrate, sound academic rigor. And of course, because it was a very high impact journal, so much revision needed to be done. Again, other reviewers also have similar, perspective. And of course, that paper was rejected, not because there was no good clinical implication or good science that was performed, but essentially because there was no scientific rigor. So we need to know that in showcasing our master's PhD work in a journal publication, we need to sell our work through credible scientific writing. An abstract could be structured or unstructured. Always check the journal's specification before submitting. And then an abstract should report main and significant results only and not the negatives. A journal might not be interested in you telling them some of the negative results, in your abstract. Yes, when in your results session proper, you could, highlight some significant findings that were negative. But in your abstract, you should be able to tell the story by highlighting mainly important and significant findings. And of course, your conclusion should be brief and written in present tense. Now, the main text of your manuscript. You can use this acronym IMRAD: Introduction, Methods, Results, Discussion, or Conclusion. Now, looking at the introduction, which is usually the background of your paper, this is quite important, quite essential, because we need to start from what is known to what is unknown. And so if the reviewer or the editor cannot easily see you demonstrating what is already known, then they will not be motivated in accepting your paper. So your introduction must reveal gaps in current literature. It needs to explain that or those additions to existing knowledge. What are you bringing up? What are you contributing? Are there new knowledge you want to add to what we know so far? We do know that metformin is very essential in the treatment of type 2 diabetes. And so if you want to publish a randomized control trial of a new medication, you should be able to demonstrate to the research audience or to the general audience or scientific audience that this particular new drug that you want to compare with metformin in treating type 2 diabetes has got additional value in clinical applicability. Then we need to know that in writing up an introduction of a paper, that highlighting the novelty of your work is highly essential. Sometimes you could have performed a very good work, but in writing up your manuscript, you are unable to highlight these essential, novel findings of your work. You should sell yourself. You must sell yourself based on what you have done through your research. You should be able to state the rationale and the significance and aims of the study. Usually, this should be embedded in your last paragraph. And generally, as a general guide, your introduction should be 2 to 3 paragraphs, because if you write a very long introduction, then it becomes boring. It might become redundant. The real message might not be there, and the reviewers might not be very much interested in your work. And of course, do not forget to cite important references. This way, you will avoid plagiarism. And of course, this will also help you to observe academic and scientific rigor as well. Do not ignore contradictory studies in your introduction. Don't just tell the story of positive findings in a given field. Also tell the story of contradictory findings from studies. You need to ensure you are telling a story in a logical manner. I remember during my PhD, my supervisor and my mentor would always tell me, Ezekiel, you need to tell a story. Because when you tell a story, then people are motivated in reading your work. But if you mix up things, you are talking about prevalence in this particular paragraph, the next paragraph, you switch to pathophysiology, and then the third paragraph, you are talking about prevalence again, and then the next paragraph, you are talking about pathogenesis. All these things, this way, everything will be haphazard, but you should be able to tell a story when you're writing your manuscript. And what are the key elements in writing a sound introduction of a paper? 1, start broadly, then narrow down to specific questions. 2, use recent and relevant citations. Don't be citing manuscripts that were written 20, 30 years ago, while we have got robust studies in the last 5 years. If you do that, the chances that the reviewers might not accept your work will be quite high. You need, because several things would have been transformed, so many new findings, novel methods, novel measurement tools would have been used in carrying out a particular study, and yet you are citing things that are already outdated. So always check that your citations are recent and relevant. And then state your study purpose very clearly. Now, methods. A method session is also very important, because this is where you're telling the audience that, look, I have asked this question, and these are the methods or methodology that I will use in answering this question. And we need to know that method session is one of the most important components of every paper. Same goes to every thesis or dissertation. Your methods must be reproducible. Meaning, if you have asked a research question and you have used a particular method in carrying out your research, if another scientist or researcher elsewhere in the world uses the same methodology, they should be able to arrive at similar findings, assuming all other conditions and study population are the same. Now, the method section of your paper should be written in past tense. Again, I've reviewed a number of papers, and you will see some of these errors. People will be writing in present tense. Again, it will be very, very tricky. A lot of reviewers and editors are very particular when it comes to, grammar or grammatically, presented or grammatically appropriate masterpieces. So we need to make sure that the grammar that we use in showcasing our publications are appropriate and are correct as well. You need to talk about the study design. If you need to talk about the study setting. If you are a clinician or you are doing biomedical research, you need to show whether the study setting is hospital-based, whether it's a population-based study, and whether it is a laboratory-based study, or whether it is a basic science study in terms of whether you're using animal models or so, you need to show, or whether it is a community or primary center-based study. So these are all study settings that you must highlight in your method section. And then you need to talk about the study population. Who are you dealing with? Is your study population pregnant women? Is your study population, male patients with type 2 diabetes? Is your study population, secondary school children that are obese? You need to highlight the study population. In doing this, you need to talk about, or you need to mention or put down your sampling method if it is relevant. And then also include the inclusion and exclusion criteria for, selecting participants in your study. And then you need to mention ethics consideration as well as participants' consent. I have reviewed a paper before which, the study was actually conducted, in humans, but they couldn't tell me whether there was ethical approval by a relevant committee. There was no evidence whether there was consent signed by participants. And of course, as a clinical researcher, I quickly highlighted this because it's very, very important. You cannot publish a work that has been conducted, among patients without getting their consent or without getting ethical approval. It's very difficult. It's highly unlikely that any journal, any credible journal will accept such a manuscript. So you need to take note of this. So if your thesis, your PhD work, you got all those approvals, make sure that by the time you're writing your method session, you should all include those significant and important components. And of course, you need to talk about the methodology in collecting your clinical data, biological sample, how did you do it? And then as well as your questionnaire, very, very important. Then you need to briefly and concisely describe the laboratory methods you use during your research. And then finally, you must have credible and appropriate statistical analysis. Then let's talk about results, section. This is quite important as well. And here, you are just telling the story of your findings. I have asked this research question. I have used these tools in answering my question. Now, these are my findings. Usually, results presentation should be in a logical sequence. They must not be haphazard. They must not be disjointed. You must show that logical sequence in showcasing your findings. You must use either text, tables, and figures to summarize the data. Try to avoid using these three or these many components and showing or summarizing your data. Whichever one you think will carry weight in demonstrating your findings to the audience, try as much as possible to showcase that in a clear and scientifically approved manner. Always start with the main or most important results. Show results of statistical analysis. Again, I reviewed a paper, I think last month, and all through the manuscript, there was particularly, in the results section, the authors completely ignored p-value. There was no evidence of, statistical significance of their findings. And of course, one of the comments was that, look, you need to showcase and demonstrate the statistical relevance and statistical significance of your findings. That way, we're able to know that your results are credible and they are not just, by any form of chance. And then you need to avoid duplication of data among tables, figures, and text. I've said that previously. Use past tense when writing your results. Very, very important. Write a comprehensive legend for tables and figures so that for every table, for every figure, each should be a stand-alone. If I pick a figure from your manuscript, I should be able to explain the findings without difficulty. I should be able to see what you are trying to showcase in your figure without any, confusion or trouble. What is the key rule? The key rule is there should be no surprises. There should be no surprises. The results section should not contain new information that has not been previously mentioned in the methods section. So assuming you have not interrogated a particular question, and now in your results section, we're now seeing you giving us results on that particular area, then again, in this particular fashion, your paper is likely to be rejected. Now, discussion or conclusion section. In my opinion, this appears to be the most important section of a manuscript, because in your introduction, mainly you are telling us what is known. In your methods section, you are highlighting what you have done in answering your research question. In your results session, you are simply telling us your findings. But in discussion section, this is where you bring in your academic expertise, your scientific genuity in presenting your research work to the scientific community. And that is why it is usually considered as the most important section of any paper or manuscript. This is where you sell your data. A weak discussion is a major cause of rejection. Interpret your results in the context of existing literature. This is what you found. This is what others have found. Are the findings aligning with your findings? Are the findings contradicting your findings? You must discuss your work in this slide. It is important you explain the significance and the clinical implications of your findings. And of course, it's also academically prudent to acknowledge the limitations of your work. Suggest the possible and potential future research directions in the given field that you intend to publish. And of course, avoid highfalutin conclusions. When writing a publication from your thesis, these components are also very essential. Number one, you must make sure you highlight your list of references, but particularly it's important to check the journal's specifications and formats before submission. Make sure you highlight author's contribution. Acknowledgements also very important, and showcase evidence of conflict of interest as well as funding for your research. What are the tips and tricks for success in transforming your master's and PhD thesis to a publication? Number one, follow journal format meticulously. Make sure you go through the journal's website and look at the format of how to publish your work. Use reference management softwares. It will help you. It will make things very easy for you. You can use softwares like EndNote, which I do use, and I find this very, very suitable for any researcher. If you do not have access to EndNote, you can also use Mendeley, which I understand is free. You can download it and use it, in citing your research papers. Very important. And of course, you can use Zotero. Whichever one you have access to can be quite useful in any academic writing. You need to get a peer feedback before submission, because if you just write and submit, the likelihood that that work will not go through is high. You need to share your manuscript with your supervisor, with your mentors, or with your peers, for them to look through your work and make critical, appraisal of what you put down, and make, critical suggestions and comments as well. Always check for plagiarism using Turnitin or simple tools. Always check for plagiarism. Very important. Academic integrity is essential for your work having a chance of being accepted for publication. Always proofread your work or your manuscript multiple times for grammar and clarity. I tell you, poor, publication, poor manuscripts in terms of grammatical errors and poor clarity is one of the major reasons papers or manuscripts are being rejected by journals. You need to include a cover letter explaining your study's importance and clinical importance or significance as well. Target the right journals. I've informed you, or I've told you previously about some of the considerations in choosing the right journal. And of course, you must respond thoroughly to reviewers' comments. Make sure if you have submitted your manuscript, the editors have sent your work to reviewers, they have made their comments and they have advised you to make important revisions. Make sure that you thoroughly respond to all the comments. Otherwise, your manuscript might not be accepted for publication. And of course, very importantly, you need to be patient with peer review and revisions process. I remember I was leading a group of colleagues in a particular research, and we had this, paper we needed to publish. And then, there was this to and forth with the reviewers. At a point, some authors, they lost patience, they were agitated, they thought, look, we should just leave this work. Why this trouble? But of course, um, luckily, I've gone through this process before, and I told them, look, let's be patient. I can see light at the end of the tunnel. You know what? At the end of the day, that particular manuscript was published in that high impact journal. And many of the co-authors were very excited at the end. So please, as a young academic, as a young researcher, or as an upcoming independent researcher, always be patient with the peer review process. Most of the times, the comments from reviewers are not criticisms, for your work. They are meant to help improve the quality of your work. Even if your work is not accepted by that journal, those comments, if you respond to them appropriately, will help you to improve your publication or your paper that can be accepted by another credible and highly impactful journal. So please be patient with the peer review process. What are the common mistakes that you need to avoid when you want to transform your thesis to a paper? One, when you ignore journals' guidelines and formatting rules, then you are likely to have your paper being rejected. Weak literature review, not positioning your work in an academically sound manner, will also make your work to have the potential chances of being rejected. And of course, when you overclaim the significance rather of your findings, then it's a huge academic error to avoid. Poor grammar and unclear writing, I've mentioned this over and over, is not something that should happen today. We have got so many, writing tools that will help us, ensure that our publications, our papers are properly written and clearly written as well. And then missing documentation or incomplete references should be avoided as well. Now, just for you to see the qualities of an excellent paper, look at this title: Antimicrobial Resistance Patterns in Urinary Tract Infections Among Women in Rural Nigeria. Implications for Empiric Therapy. You can see from this title that, the authors of this particular work have shown specificity. You could see they are specific because they are talking about antimicrobial resistance patterns in urinary tract infections, not another infection. And they are quite focused because they are talking about women in rural Nigeria. Now you can see the geographical relevance of the particular title of the study. Therefore, we need to know that this title is showcasing practical application of the work that was conducted by these researchers. And of course, an excellent paper should show clear research question, as I've mentioned previously, and then should show strong methodology that is highly reproducible and with a well-presented result. The discussion section should be precise, that will show global linkages in terms of context, and proper citations and formatting should be showcased. Now, as we round up our lecture this morning, what are the important resources that we need to utilize in transforming our master's PhD thesis to journal masterpieces. We need to use grammar editors. You can use Grammarly, you can use Pro Writing Aid. And if you do not have funding to subscribe to some of these important grammar editors, there are some free ones you can find online. You can utilize them to improve the quality of your publication or your paper before submission. You can use citation managers such as EndNote and Mendeley, statistical tools such as GraphPad, SPSS, R, and Stata. And I'm glad from the intro of this lecture today, I could see that Age has got, they've got an academy where you can learn some of these statistical tools. So in case you are not very proficient in using any of these, you can, contact Age and register with them, attend those courses, and you should be proficient in analyzing your research work very efficiently. And of course, if you do not have significant time to, in investing in that particular course, you can, use some credible biostatisticians or epidemiologists to help you in analyzing your work. And of course, you need academic writing editors sometimes in making sure that your work showcases academic rigor and academic excellence before submitting your paper to any journal. Now, let's quickly look at the submission journey. Typically, there's usually what we call editorial screening. So by the time you have submitted your paper, which you have generated from your thesis, most journals will use 1 to 2 weeks to screen your paper and to see if your paper, fit in with the journal's guidelines and formatting, protocol. And then after that, then it will go through to the editor, where the editor will now look at it and assign peer reviewers, to look at your work. Typically, this takes 6 to 12 weeks, where you have expert evaluation of your paper. And then if there's a requirement for revision, they will send it to you for responses and for, further revision before sending it back to the journal. And then if the reviewers find your revisions acceptable and adequate, then they will advise the journal for accepting your work before final publication. Then, if your paper is rejected, just know that this is not the end of life. This is not the end of your academic journey. It's not the end of the trip to a destination. Make sure you read the reviewer's comments carefully and objectively. This way, you'll be able to improve your paper that can subsequently be accepted by another credible journal. Secondly, revise thoroughly based on constructive feedback you have received from the reviewers. You need to consider a different journal that has a broader scope. Don't give up. Many successful papers faced rejection. You need to know that. Track timeline from submission to revision to resubmission. This will help you plan your academic journey. Finally, before I rest my case, you need to know that your thesis is the seed, but the journal article is the fruit. A lot of times, People have done good work in their masters, in their PhD, but yet no publication, no manuscript has been extracted from those, citing work. We need to know that the thesis is just a seed. It is only when you publish that you have the fruit of the research work that you have undertaken. Your research matters. It matters so much to the scientific world. It matters so much to the clinical world. It matters so much to the general population. Therefore, share it with the world. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any further questions, I will entertain them.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much. While your presentation was going on, the comment section was already full with a lot of comments. Very impactful, sir. More strength, Prof. Is a timely presentation. Thank you, Prof, for the insightful session. A lot of thank you messages have been dropped in the chat box. So everyone, join me to appreciate our facilitator for today's lecture, Professor Ezekiel Musa. Keep the comments coming. Keep the comments coming. Sincere appreciation to you, sir. Thank you so much. Your lecture was timely and it was really impactful. Thank you so much. We'll be going for question and answer shortly, but before that, we just want to present a brief announcement. Then we take up question and answer. So if you have any question, just go to the chat box and then type your question. We'll be reading it up and Prof will be answering them and be clarifying any question you have. I can see the comments. Keep them coming. Keep your appreciation coming. A lot of comments are already saying, thank you, well done. Thank you, Prof. Well done, sir. Good lecture. Prof has done justice to this lecture. Well done, sir. More strength, Prof. A lot of comments. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. We'll also be sharing the feedback form. Whatever nice comments you have for Prof, kindly drop it there. And whatever question also you have, you can also ask through the feedback form. It will be shared to Prof directly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So shortly we'll be going for a brief announcement before we take up questions. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us for today's lecture, which was organized by the Academic and Grant Writing Enclave. Thank you so much. We are over 80 in the call, and I want to say that kindly just use a few seconds to send a thumbs up, to give a thumbs up to this video. Give a thumbs up. It's just 27 like, and we are more than 80 who are present on the call. So give a thumbs up on the video to show your appreciation to Academic and Grants Writing Enclave for hosting our esteemed professor today. So the Academic and Grant Writing Enclave, today's lecture, the keynote lecture today, is not just the only thing we have at H. We also have our academies. One, we have the Academic Writers Academy. That is it's a 6-week online training that provide practical skills for students, early career researchers, and faculty members. Registration for our cohort 6 is currently ongoing. And I can tell you, we have a lot of alumni who are even present on the call. It's a great place if you want to write good and publish in high impact journal. Then the Academic Writers Academy is a course you should not miss. It is ideal for anyone who wants to harness their inner genius in writing. Register today. Visit our website www.academicenclave.org/hour to register. Then we have the Grant Writers Academy. The Grant Writers Academy by Age is a 3-week certification course for researchers, non-profits, organizations, consultants, and entrepreneurs. In fact, we just concluded cohort 3 for Grant Writers Academy, and registration is also on for cohort 4. So if you want to learn to secure, if you want to know how to write grants and to win grants for your research and even for your non-profit organization, even as an entrepreneur, then the Grant Writers Academy is an academy you should go for. register today. We have the Data Analysis Academy. While the lecture was going on, Prof mentioned, seeing the intro video we played, yes, we have Data Analysis Academy where you can learn how to turn from collection to data analysis. You learn how to streamline your survey data collection. We have 8 different tools which we teach researchers and different academic people on how to use them to analyze data for their research and also for their work. Data Analysis Academy Cohort 4 registration is currently ongoing. Also register today. And lastly, for our academics, we have the Research Innovation Academy. In fact, tomorrow is our graduation ceremony for Research Innovation Academy Cohorts 3. We have roughly 78 participants for this cohort 3 who will be graduating tomorrow. And of course, we're accepting registration already for cohort 4. So hurry and get registered. The Research Innovation Academy is a hub for groundbreaking research. If you want to cultivate a culture where risk meets reward, then the Research Innovation Academy cohort 4 is an academy you should not miss. We're also present on LinkedIn, we're present on WhatsApp, we're present on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, just like many of you are following the meeting today. So find us there and join us, where we post very, very resourceful information that will help you. Then we have this groundbreaking research book, Trade Secrets to Scopus Publication, by Dr. Dauda Wadzani himself. So it's for the scholar who refuses to stay invisible. If you want to publish your groundbreaking research and you want to be visible, then the Scopus book is for you. Trade Secrets to Scopus Publication. The soft copy goes for 10,500 naira. The link to purchase it will be sent in the chat box. The soft copy is also available. We've sent out a lot of copies to different parts of the country, to Kano, to different parts of the country, both the north, the west, and the east. So get your copy today and don't stay invisible. Then we have the Forge. The Forge was established under the Age to provide a targeted, structured, and confidential response to the silence crisis that many master's students, PhD candidates, and career researchers are facing in academic world today. So this is not just a public group chat. It is not another webinar, but it's a purpose-driven mentorship and academic wellness conclave engineered for those navigating deep academic pressure, confusion, and fatigue. If you want to be mentored directly by a top researcher himself, then the Forge group is one you should belong to. It is a mentorship group. So all your hidden battles, all your hidden fears and questions will be trashed in the mentorship group called Forge. So the link to join will also be sent in the chat box. You can find the link, and also to register for any of our academies, the link will be sent in the chat box. You can click on them and then get registered. And if you want to join the Telegram WhatsApp, the Telegram group rather for Forge, you can scan the QR code to join, or rather you join through the link that will also be dropped in the chat box. Thank you so much for attending today's lecture. It's a delight to have each and every one of you in the lecture today, and also sincere appreciation to Prof. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Your lecture was really impactful and very, very interesting. Now we'll be going for questions and answers. As I've announced earlier, if you have any question, kindly type them in the chat box, and I'll be reading them out for our keynote speaker, and he will be answering them from the call. All right, it's time for question and answers. Yes, I can see the like on the video is increasing. If you have not, kindly go drop a thumbs up on the video, Also subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not. If you have any questions, kindly go type them in the chat box. I'll be reading them out shortly. Prof, there are a lot of thank you message in the chat box. There are a lot of thank you message. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Prof. Well done, sir. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Prof. Thank you for this impactful presentation. Thank you so much, Prof, and every member of Age. Thank you, sir. God bless you so much. A lot of messages, and they keep coming in. Sincere appreciation, sir. We're really happy to host you today. So we'll be going in for a question. You can see a question by Priscilla Ofo. She said, please, sir, review this doctoral title for me. Please, sir, review this doctoral title for me. Multidimensional diet quality and its determinants among rural adolescent schoolgirls in Ghana. Multidimensional diet quality and
Yeah.
its determinants among rural adolescent schoolgirls in Ghana.
Quality, multi-dimensional diet.
Okay, let me go again. Multidimensional diet,
Mhm.
multidimensional diet quality and its determinants
Yeah.
among rural adolescent schoolgirls in Ghana.
Okay. Is this a PhD or a master's thesis?
Okay, Priscilla Ofo, is it a PhD or master's, ma'am? Ma'am Priscilla Ofo, yes, we are actually asking, is it a PhD? The facilitator is asking, is it a PhD or a master thesis? I'm waiting for your response, ma'am. All right, so I'll just go to the
Yeah.
next
Next
question
one,
while
yeah.
she responds to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, thanks, sir, excellent. Please, I submitted a paper and it has taken 4 months without acknowledgement, and I have written to them to know if my paper is rejected. Can I represent it to another journal? That's a question by Dr. Scholar
Okay.
Okorafo.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is a good question. Yeah, but we need to know, the first thing we need to check with you is what is the journal scope? From their guidelines, what is usually the timelines from submission to responses from reviewers? Now we need to check all this. If this is clear, then we might not need to have anxiety, because sometimes there are a high profile journal, high, very, very, highly impactful journals. It might take time for the review process to complete. And that way, the fact that it is taking time does not mean that your paper is missing somewhere, but because reviewers, perhaps are a bit busy, or they are still working on your paper. And then sometimes they could have submitted to different reviewers, but maybe one reviewer is very busy and has not submitted their feedback, and then they keep your paper. So you need to check, first and foremost, what is the scope of the paper? Secondly, what are their timelines? Thirdly, if the 4 months you have advised is beyond their timelines, then you need to send the editor or the journal's representatives an email to ask questions regarding your paper. But ethically speaking, you are not supposed to represent your paper to another journal, except you have received clear written email or response from the journal that yes, your paper has been rejected and it's no longer undergoing any peer review process. That way, you will be free to resubmit it elsewhere. But if your paper status is showing under review, it means it is still undergoing review. Please be a little patient. Do not resubmit this paper to another journal. Otherwise, you might stand a chance of losing the paper because of lack of academic integrity. Is it clear?
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Dr. Scholar, I believe your question has been answered. There's another question here. Insika is asking, she said, my question is, what is the key difference among rationale, significance, and justification of study? What is the key difference among rationale, significance, and justification of study.
Okay. So if I may answer your question, um, there are terminologies that are intertwined. They are linked. You might not necessarily have each of them standing alone. The rationale of your study will tell us how to justify. Just a moment. All right. Now, the rationale of the study is telling us why have you undertaken this study. This is why I am doing this study, because based on current literature, this is the gap I could see at the moment. So for instance, people have looked at the prevalence of diabetes of urban dwellers, let's say in Nigeria. And no one has looked at the prevalence of diabetes in rural dwellers in Nigeria. And we do know that the social demography of people living in urban areas is quite different from those living in rural areas. And the indices or the factors that promote diabetes or that are risks to people developing diabetes are much more prevalent, for instance, in people living or dwelling in urban areas compared to the rural areas. So in this perspective, there is a gap here, because we do know that maybe the prevalence of diabetes in urban dwellers, let's say, is 2%. But we do not know what is happening in rural dwellers. Although we know that the risk factors for diabetes are much more prevalent in the urban areas, but we do not have any idea about the risk factors that are driving diabetes in the rural areas. Now, this gap in knowledge could be a rationale for your study. Why? We don't know the prevalence of diabetes among rural dwellers. Two, we are not aware about the factors driving diabetes prevalence in rural drivers. So you can use this as a rationale because there's a gap in knowledge. Then this rationale could be a justification for the work. So in this instance, you can see they are linked. It might not necessarily be that you read this as rationale and then you come back and say justification as well. But when you talk about significance of your study, you are saying that this research question you are asking, by the time I undertake the study, by answering this research question, the findings of my study will solve this problem or will answer this question or will bridge this knowledge gap. That is significance. Again, you can see this will also serve as a rationale or a justification for a study. So in summary, what I'm trying to say is that there's a thin line, or there's a very thin line between the three, but overall, in terms of academic writing, they are interlinked. Whatever you design as your rationale is likely to justify your study and is likely to explain the significance of your work. And what is most important is, have you appraised current literature? Have you identified research gaps? Have you identified clinical important areas that you want to improve? Are there clinical investigative methods you want to improve based on the literature search you've done? Then if you found gaps in these areas, then if your study is meant or is aimed at addressing all these gaps, then this will form your rationale or the significance of your study, or will justify your study. I'm not sure if I put it in a simple way.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much. I believe the person who asked the question would have been clarified. Sir, for the first question, we
Yeah.
actually missed it. The question is the answer to the question is actually in the question,
Hmm.
because she asked, please, sir, review this doctoral title for me. So I believe it's a PhD.
Okay.
It's a PhD. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah. So in this instance,
multidimensional. Okay, sir.
yeah. So in this instance, because it's an academic piece, and Priscilla, you would want to keep your research work, your PhD work, confidential before defending, because you are still, I suppose, you are still working on this project. You do not want anybody to duplicate your work. So I would advise that you could send me an email, or you could communicate with me through Age, and I can, provide support with regards to the title of your work. But I think it will be inappropriate for you to discuss your research work in this public space. Is this something you're happy to do?
Thank you so much, Prof, for that wisdom. Thank you so much. I believe she will get in contact to you through us. Thank you so much, sir. And the next question by Abdullahi, he said, Prof, sir, you said we should avoid redundancies, e.g. Northwestern Nigeria. What is bad in that? Is it mentioning the Northwest or Northeast or what? I hope stating the location. Okay, probably I was hoping stating the location is vital.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Abdullahi, for that. I think I understand where you're coming from. But many years ago, about a decade now, I did a study in one of the northern, cities, on hypogonadism, among male patients with type 2 diabetes. And arguably, that appears to be the largest work on the African continent in that particular, subject. And I can tell you, I have published 3 articles, manuscript papers from that work, and I have presented at, leading, international conferences, particularly sharing this work. And I can confidently tell you there was no time that I specifically used that particular city's name or my region in northern Nigeria. And most of the publications were in high impact journal, international journal for that matter. And I got an award somewhere because of that particular work. So it is not in the Northwest that, your work can be credible, because the Northwest Nigeria is redundant, because it's not telling me anything. From the methodology, I should be able to see where the study was conducted. But when you are writing the title, you don't have to mention Northwest. So in one of the papers I did, one of the papers I wrote from that particular study, I only said prevalence of hypergonadotropic hypogonadism in male patients with type 2 diabetes in Nigeria. And I never mentioned the name of the city. I never mentioned Northwest. That is clear. You can see I have mentioned the geographical area or location where the study was performed, Nigeria. But in methodology, a reader will be able to see where the study was performed, in particular. But in the title, there might be no need for you to mention the city or Northwest Nigeria. It will be a bit redundant. Many people will not be interested. As a matter of fact, if you express where the study was done from the title, most people will not be interested in reading your work. So I would advise you ignore some of those redundancies so that your paper will have a chance of being accepted. In fact, there's another one I published recently from that same study where I did not mention Nigeria, I did not mention anything. I just said, and because it was answering a pathophysiological perspective of that study, I only said type 2 diabetes mellitus and not obesity is associated with male, reproductive function and hormonal decline. In that perspective, and I stopped there. But that title was so strong, was so attractive. The reviewer was so excited, and one go, after a few revisions, it was published. So we need to, know how to read it and then coin our topics that will be that will be interesting to the editor, to the journal, as well as to the editor, as well as to the reviewers. Particularly, if you want your paper, even when it is accepted, to have many downloads, many reads, and many citations, the title should be so attractive enough so that we can showcase our masterpieces beautifully.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much for the clarification. He asked another question. He said, you said abstract should be brief. What number of words can you suggest, sir?
So, in answering that question, it's as simple as this. Follow the journal's specification. Follow the journal specification. There's no one answer to that, because some journals would accept 250 words, some would accept 200, some would accept 150, some would accept unlimited number of words. So you need to check the journal and look at their specification and their guidance before writing up your abstract.
All right, thank you so much, Prof. There are other questions here, and I think they are directed to us. How do I join the statistical tools class? How do I join the next cohorts? Each of the link to join both the Research Innovation Academy, Cohort 4, Data Analysis Academy, Cohort 4, Academic Writers Academy, Cohort 6, and Data Analysis Academy, Cohort 4. All the links have been dropped in the chat box. Just scroll up and you find them. Then you can register to be part of the next cohort. And if you want to be part of the Forge mentorship group, you can also find the link to join them. If you want to follow us on WhatsApp, on Facebook, and Instagram, the link to follow has also been dropped in the chat box. Just follow through. So there's a comment here by Ibrahim Musa. He said, I was your student back in 2010 to 2012, and your guidance was instrumental to how I treat patients today. Thank you, sir. So he's sending an appreciation. It's a small world, actually. Thank you so much, sir. And there are a lot of appreciations here also. A lot of persons are sending their thank you, thank you, thank you. So there's another question here. Please, are position papers allowed in Impact Journal? That is by Dr. Scholar Okorafor. Are position papers allowed in Impact Journal?
Sure, it's as simple as that. Sure. It depends on what position you are trying to showcase. But if it has got good academic rigor as well as merit, yes, it can be accepted.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Another question here is how do we know the index and non-index journal? By Ibrahim Ahmed.
Good. So Ibrahim, if you want to know whether a journal is indexed on a credible database or not, always go to their website, click the website if they've got one, and then read through. Usually they will mention the databases where they index their papers. And from that, you'll be able to see whether they index their paper on PubMed, Web of Science, CINAHL, Scopus, or whatever. So once you see any of these, then you are happy that the paper is not likely to be Predator Journal. But any journal, journal, any journal without a credible database, you need to be suspicious, because at the end of the day, you might publish your work there, but there is no visibility to the general scientific community. So try as much as possible to publish in a journal that is indexed on credible databases.
All right, Prof. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I think we've exhausted all the questions in the chat box. If you're still on the call, kindly type "Thank you, Prof." Thank you, Prof. Let's see it coming. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. I'm waiting. Let's see your thank you, Prof, in the chat box. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prof. We sincerely appreciate your time and the session you had with us today. It was truly, truly impactful and interesting. Just before we call it a day, I also want to emphasize the feedback form has also been sent. We want to know your thoughts, want to carry out a final survey on how the lecture has impacted you. So kindly find it in the chat box and fill it. It won't take it's just a few minutes and you'll be done. Thank you. Yes, I can see the comments already by Scholar Okora 4, Ezio 4, Adenike. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. Abdullahi. All of them, they are sending their thank you to you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The comments are still coming. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, sir. Just before we call it a day, I want to invite our Director of Training and Development at Academic and Grant Writing Enclave, the person of Dr. Dauda Wadzani, to give the vote of thanks. You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, on behalf of the entire age, a big thanks to a keynote lecturer, my very good friend, an amazing scholar. It's phenomenal to have Professor Musa, sorry, I had a little glitch. Yeah, so a big thanks to Mr. Musa. Thank you so much for coming in. It's phenomenal for hello. Yeah, sorry, my network just had a glitch. Am I audible, please, Grace?
Yes, sir.
All right. So once again, like I said, this is the 50th lecture series of the Academic and Grant Writing Enclave, and it's phenomenal. It's it's great because quite a lot has happened. Quite a lot has taken place in the last 2 years. In 2 years period, wrapping 50 lecture series monthly. It's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. And big thanks to everyone, starting from the board members of the board of trustees and board of studies and everyone that is here, the executives, of course, and everyone that has been instrumental in this event. And thank you so much for coming around, and thank you for being with us. The fact is that this particular team was chosen, because of the feedback and the responses that came out when we had that first lecture on turning your thesis to a research paper, and several people, especially from the medical field, were asking. That was why this topic was chosen, and no one else could do justice to that. There's someone who has gone through not just the process, but is domiciled and doing great in it. So thank you so much, everyone, for being around. Thank you for coming around in age, all of our activities. By next year, it's taking a bigger shape, and we hope to see you much more, and we hope to meet each other much more. We hope that by the conference, second year conference is holding in December. I guess over 1,000 people, I guess, will have registered by now. So, but working towards, of course, formally, everything will be handled now by 2026 by the society, which a lot of you are also members. And so, the big plan is to have the physical conference next year in December. So, until then, we'll still keep meeting online, we'll still keep interacting and all. So, a big thanks on behalf of everyone. Thanks to our DS keynote lecture speaker today. Thank you for coming around, and have a great weekend ahead. Thank you, and bye.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much, sir. And another thank you to our speaker for today. Thank you so much, Prof. Musa Ezekiel. We sincerely appreciate you. And to everyone who stayed through till the end of the lecture today, thank you so much. We sincerely appreciate you. Thank you for joining us today. Kindly remember to fill the feedback form, and see you in the next keynote lecture. You can join us for the conference happening in December, which was mentioned by the director, from December 11th to 13th. Join us for Age International Conference. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day.